Hey everyone, Warehouse and Operations as a Career here. I'm Marty. Everyone having a great week, I hope. I thought we'd talk a little bit about the electric rider jack today. I was in a class last week where the subject of operating platform rider pallet jacks came up, and I have to say I was a little shocked at a few of the comments that I was hearing. The conversation was more between recruiters and a few applicants, actually. A couple had a little experience on a rider jack, while most in the room did not. Now, I gathered that they did not have experience because I was listening to their answers being given as the hiring agent was asking them some questions. Oh, and the couple of people that had experience, well, I didn't feel like they were going to be taking their positions very seriously. At least not the safety aspects of the job. So let's talk just a little bit about electric pallet jacks for a minute. I don't know, maybe what they are, why we use them, and what we can use them for. You know, really, rider pallet jacks, although they're great for running freight into the aisles from the front docks, when I think of rider jacks, I'm thinking about order selecting. Not really order picking or just being an order selector. I always kind of go to the high productivity positions in my mind. Not that there's anything wrong with the others, but I think of a high productivity environment where we're moving a lot of freight. Maybe even on the double or even the triple pallet jacks. So I don't know, let's see where we end up in about 10 minutes. Since I mentioned selector, I want to start by defining the word order selector. Glassdoor, one of our major job boards, will tell us that. An order selector is responsible for selecting customer orders and fulfilling them as quickly and accurately as possible. Task will include the selecting, staging, packaging, and loading of customer orders to be delivered without damage or error. Warehouse equipment is also used to help achieve this goal. And then 6river.com tells us that warehouse picking refers to the process where individual items are picked from a fulfillment facility to satisfy customers' orders. It's an essential aspect of order fulfillment and is considered one of the most expensive and labor-intensive activities for warehouses. And then we have Wikipedia. My kind of go-to truthful resource has a whole lot to say about it. So Wikipedia gives us a list of terms that they call picking strategies. There are several different strategies for order picking, which include piece picking or picker-to-part method. The order picker moves to collect the products necessary for one order. This is commonly seen in the distribution center for retail chains, whereby a shop will be requiring, a whole lot of replenishment goods. A picker may pick all or part of the replenishment for one shop. And then zone picking method. Each order picker is assigned to one specific zone and will only realize order picking within that zone. And then the batch picking method. Order selectors move to collect the products necessary for several separate orders at one time through the most efficient route in the warehouse. Then you have the wave picking method, which is a combination of zone and batch picking, where batches of orders are passed from picker to picker through different zones. And then the sorting systems method, and that's where no movement of the order selector, or the order picker, I guess I should say. The products are brought to her or him by an automatic system, and kind of think of like conveyor belts or automatic storage systems. And then the pick-to-box method, really kind of the same strategy as piece picking that we mentioned above, but when product is picked, it is placed directly into a mailing-ready container, removing the need for any interim repackaging or mailing. Think things like transit purposes. Okay, so those are kind of definitions given to us. I'm going to share my definition with you, and it's a whole lot simpler. I believe that an order selector is responsible for safely, efficiently, and in a timely manner selecting, picking, and retrieving an item from its storage area which a customer has purchased or another department needs. Now this can be for retail, wholesale, delivery, transportation, or while in the manufacturing and production environments, retrieving an item or product for the next department to use. Much simpler, right? An order selector is called many different things, but they all perform the same task really. Of course, there's different techniques for selecting a component for the next nuclear-fueled medical device and what and how we'd be pulling, for say a part at the pencil factory. But we're going to get something from storage and giving it to another department like transportation for delivery or another department to use in something's creation. And we'll be using different kinds of equipment to accomplish each one of them. We're really seeing more and more picking stations being utilized today than we have in the past. I believe it's because today's workforce is laced with a touch of automation. And this automation isn't a bad thing. It has helped reduce injuries like soft muscle, abuse, bumping our heads, entering or exiting the racking, or maybe the slots, even cutting ourselves on crossbars and uprights. But let's talk about picking for just a second. As we just mentioned, picking usually will not require the use of powered industrial equipment per se. In a picking environment, we may have employees staged in the aisle, walking a section, picking items from the bins and slots and placing them on roller boards or rolling conveyors. It looks like maybe they're placing small parts in a box, maybe building an order per box even. Things like that kind of makes me think of small phone parts, maybe computer parts or meter parts. My first picker job was for a gas and propane meter production plant. I'd put things as small as little bitty O-rings for valves and as large as things like 1-cube housings for meters. I'd walk, I don't know how many miles a day. It was rough getting used to it, but I really did enjoy that job. I'm straying a little bit, aren't I? Then in a case pick environment, an associate may be manually selecting a product and places it on the running conveyor to take it to the loading area where it will be consolidated as an order and actually loaded out. Anyway, picker positions, sometimes advertised as hand picker positions, can be those great get our foot in the door positions in the manufacturing and production arenas. Let's talk about another type of picking for just a minute. While we were going over definitions a bit ago, we talked about pallet picking. In your larger wholesale centers, you'll see a lot of bulk pulling or pallet pulling. This is where forklift operators will receive their batches and go retrieve their orders, which are pallet quantities generally, and take them to the loading docks to be tagged, along with any other items that a customer has ordered and loaded out for delivery. Now that we're starting to talk about equipment, we'll need to understand that OSHA standard again. I won't go too deep here, but it's very important that we understand it. It's a rule. It's actually the law. We'll need to go through a 29 CFR 1910.178 class before operating any type of powered industrial equipment. This is the class you'll hear referred to as your PIT training or PIT training. It'll come in two parts actually. First, you'll have some very interesting classroom time where your instructor will share some experiences, present several videos with open discussions with his or her class. To complete the certification process, there is an observation component where your instructor will observe you operating the assigned equipment on your own facility's dock or in that work environment that you're around every day. I believe one of the most important things you'll learn is how to perform your daily pre-shipped equipment report or your pre-trip report. And I want to add one more thing in here real quick. As a warehouseman or warehousewoman, any type of warehouse associate really that's performing any type of warehouse function, do not, under any circumstances, and no matter who is instructing you to do so, never get on or attempt to move or operate any type of powered industrial equipment, like electric pallet jack, forklift, whatever, that you have not been trained and certified to do so on. And I'd really like to extend that to any type of machinery as well. Our equipment is safe when we know what we're doing, and our training and best practices will ensure that. So we've talked a little about order picking and picking or pulling, terms that are used mainly for small wares, parts, etc., mainly in the production and manufacturing worlds. I think these are great get your foot in the door positions, as I mentioned earlier. But now let's talk about those high productivity uses that I mentioned. We're going to enter into the distribution industry. An order selector within the distribution centers will typically fall under two different categories. Those would be productivity and non-productivity. And along with that, we could be looking at several different pay or earnings programs too. Earlier, we talked about picking, pulling, and order pickers, all of which fall underneath the heading of order selector. Our earlier job descriptions entailed conveyors, walking aisles, carousels, and bin or tote type work maybe. Maybe delicate parts and small wares. Oh, and we learned a little bit about bulk pulling or forklift selection. Now with order selection, we'll be utilizing a few other types of equipment. Let's start with the electric walkie pallet jack. There won't be any platform to stand on. Just as the name implies, you walk along with it, in front of it, or maybe beside it. You'll encounter this type of equipment more often in a non-productivity environment. I've seen it used where things like glass bottles of liquids, maybe syrups, are selected. Things like supplies and specialty items, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Your smaller centers with shorter aisles. A very useful machine, but with some limitations of efficiencies, in our larger facilities. Now let's speak to the electric rider jack, a single rider jack. Now the typical types that you'll run into are the end control and the center control, and you can check those out in your internet browser. They both have an accelerator at the end of the handle, either a roll bar throttle or a thumb flap kind of roll bar to turn forward for forward motion, or roll back for reverse movement. You'll raise or lower the handle to stop, and that'll be a very immediate stop. Or you'll just reverse direction with your accelerator, and that's called braking or plugging. And that's how you'll stop and slow your equipment. And of course, we'll have an up button and down button for our forks. And they'll lift, 4 to 6 inches to allow us to carry our pallets across the docks. And some models will have a rabbit switch on the grab bar. This is used for extra speed, not extra torque, and it is only used when we're on an open dock and you can drive a little faster. It's thrown off many a good associate. Don't use it unless you know what it's going to do. Oh, and I forgot to mention the most important part. Every piece of powered industrial truck and equipment will have a horn on it. And usually you'll have a horn in 2 or 3 different places. And then you'll run across the double pallet jack, meaning that you'll be selecting with 2 pallets behind you. Selecting twice as much freight every time you make a pass through the warehouse. Imagine if, let's say, if we have 60 cube a pallet on our single jack, now we'll be able to select 120 cube on every batch, and it gets even better. Because then we're going to run across the triple pallet jack. Now this is a true workhorse in every sense of the word. At 60 cube a pallet, now we're at 180 cube per batch or for every pull. We're going to run across these pretty much only in our larger distribution centers. It takes a little more room to turn and operate these, but you can move massive amounts of freight with them. It's a great productivity machine. And that's a few thoughts on the pallet jack, and I guess a bit on order selecting. Well, I didn't stay on topic tonight at all, but I did have a lot of fun with it. I hope I answered something you may have been wondering about, or at least gave you something to think about. Until next week, be safe in all that you do, and let's all help a teammate with something this week.